What's up? So a few days ago, I was out here sitting on this very rock. You see that tree over there? So I was sitting on this rock. I was on my phone, just fiddling around, and I hear crunch, crunch. And I look over to where that tree is. And what do I see? A fucking bear just walks right past me. Didn't even look at me, just nonchalantly just walked right by me. Right in the middle of the day. And I'm just like, oh shit, it's a fucking bear. So I don't move. I'm like, because I don't want to startle this thing. I don't know if the thing sees me or not. Does this thing even know I'm here? So I didn't want to move. I didn't want to startle it. I didn't want to find out. But eventually it walks by, and then I get the idea. You know what? I should get this thing on video. Where's my camera? Where's my phone? So I try to whip out my phone, try to get my camera, but it was too late. It was gone. And I was like, shit. That's probably only the second bear sighting I've ever seen. In all my years, that's the second one I've seen a real bear in the wild. I wish I could have gotten that on video. Damn. Anyway, I want to come out here, do another rant. I guess today I'll talk about the 9 to 5 again. This is such a popular topic. Everybody's talking about this. We're in an age where nobody wants to work anymore. Okay, so I apologize for this shitty angle. The sun on my face. This is not the most flattering view. Anyway, the 9 to 5. Nobody wants to work anymore in 2025. So this is going to be addressed more towards the lower paying jobs. You know, the jobs that don't really require much of an education, don't require much skill. Mainly more of those entry-level jobs, the warehouse jobs, the entry-level data entry jobs, the call center jobs. I think I'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons. I've worked in both. I've done both. The majority of my time I spent working, physical labor jobs, warehouse jobs. But I also did work in an office at one point for over a year. Sometimes you wonder which one is worse. You gotta wonder which is worse. They both have their pros and cons. So I'll start with the first one. I'll start with the physical job, the warehouse job. So the first job I ever worked was for a retail thrift store. You know, those stores where they accept donations. They basically resell a bunch of donated items that people don't want anymore. So places like Goodwill, for instance, that's a good example. That's not the place I worked at. But I worked mainly in the back. I worked mainly, the part that you don't see, not the floor, but the part in back where everything is. I would unload the trucks and make sure everything was kind of prepared. So that was my first taste of a job involving physical labor. I was fresh out of high school at the time. I also worked at a lawn garden pet store for over 6 years, loading mulch, filling propane tanks, stacking bales of hay or straw. Oh, that was a lot of fun. Try loading 70 to 140 bales of hay and straw into a small space, stacking them like bricks. In the middle of the summer in 90 degrees, you're sweating, and then the hay and straw. If you're wearing shorts, the hay and straw is gonna get in your pants, it's gonna get in your shoes. But I remember, I had, one of the worst parts was having customers, You felt like they were low-key making fun of you, in a way. They would come in their nice air-conditioned cars. While you load their vehicle, you're sweating. I mean, I had to wear this shirt, this blue shirt, this cotton shirt, and every day that shirt would get drenched. That shirt would be like 2 shades darker. You could tell I was sweating my ass off. The pros and cons of physical jobs. I guess I'll start with the cons. Obviously, it's physical, so obviously you're gonna bust your ass. You essentially become like a human robot. You can expect to walk multiple miles per day. The more tired you are, and you will get tired, the more tired you are, the less energy you have, the slower you'll work. The slower you work, the more it's gonna hurt your productivity. All right, there's a lot of mosquitoes in here. I'm gonna have to move. Be right back. Oh, that's better. Now, where were we? So you got productivity. You got to move around a lot. Lots of lifting. If you're not in good shape, it's probably not the best job for you. You got to be able to move around. You got to be able to lift. You got to be strong. You got to be able to be in multiple places at once. You need to have a decent amount of energy. Because if you don't have energy, if you're tired, you're going to work slower, and then your productivity is going to be shit. And then, they're going to be on you. And or worse, if you have to stay busy. Just to look busy. Like, no matter what you do, you have to look busy, even if it's just stocking one item at a time, sweeping the floor, stupid bullshit work that just doesn't actually do anything. Busy work. Those are some of the worst. Those are some of the worst days where it's like there's really nothing to actually do. But you can't just take a breather. You can't just sit around. You gotta look busy. You gotta find stuff to do. And that's annoying. When I worked at that lawn garden pet place, there was this guy who was, my supervisor, the guy above me. He was such a taskmaster. It's like no matter what, you couldn't just... He's that guy. I actually talked about him before in my 9-to-5, my wage slavery. My 9-to-5 wage slave experience. The first one. This motherfucker, he wouldn't be there on the weekends, but he would leave tasks. He would leave these to-do lists. He would leave signs and lists all over the warehouse for us. And one time we actually went in the back of the warehouse where there were no cameras, where nobody could see you, and you see a sign, and it says, "Stop hiding back here. Find something to do." It's just like, this motherfucker. He didn't have the balls to tell that to our faces, of course. So you really don't get much rest time. You really got to move all the time. One exception being if you work in a place like Amazon, which I've also worked at. Sometimes if you run out of work, like if you're at like a workstation and there's no work, then you can basically just take a breather. But aside from that, usually you'll have to deal with quotas, you'll have to deal with numbers. There are rates, sometimes working in physical warehouse jobs, meaning you have to put away a certain item, a certain amount of items per hour. And that's usually around 300, 350 items per hour. So imagine having to stack boxes. So imagine working a warehouse job where you have to stack boxes, 300 boxes per hour. Or you have to put items away, you take items, scan items, and put them into a bin. 300 per hour. And you have to maintain that pretty much all damn day for the entire shift. Usually you have to sign in. Usually they can track you. So this type of job will definitely turn you into a caffeine addict pretty quickly, I've noticed. Because our bodies, they push our body to the limit. There's only so much. Your body, you only have so much energy throughout the course of a day. Like for me, a man my age, I mean, I have the most energy in the morning after I have my coffee. But as the day goes on, my energy kind of starts to go down a little bit, especially in the middle of the day. You know, that 2:30 feeling, 2:30, 3 o'clock, that crash where you just want to lay down, you want to take a nap. You can't move. You don't want to move. Your arms feel like noodles. But you can't stop. You can't stop. You got to keep moving. You got to keep working. So when I worked at FedEx Ground, I started out as a loader, which is easily the hardest job, probably the hardest fucking job there. And the managers there were constantly on you. So imagine being in this trailer and there's actually an underbelly to the trailer that you fill up first. You have to climb down into it, and there are these rollers in the trailer. And when the packages come down a conveyor belt, they come down a chute and they end up in your truck, in your trailer. And then they're supposed to roll down the rollers towards you. So you can just grab them and put them down. And you just fill up the whole underbelly. And as you're doing it, you're lowering these, they're called trailer flaps. And then once the underbelly is filled, you get out, make sure all the flaps are down. And then from the back of the trailer to the front, you load it up wall by wall, stacking the boxes. It's like a game of Tetris. You gotta be really good at figuring out managing space. You make sure the nice big boxes are on the bottom, and then you kind of lay the smaller boxes over it. You want to have the smaller boxes on the top and in the corners. It's a real art. Like, you're not going to know what you're doing when you first start. You're going to suck. So the problem is, you don't have any control over how fast those boxes are coming down that chute. There's a chute, and the boxes come down the chute and into your trailer. And if you're not fast enough, what's going to happen is the packages are going to start to overflow. They're going to spill out all over the place. It's going to make a huge mess. Your chute is going to end up getting backed up with packages. And then it's going to cause this light to go off, which is basically going to cut off the flow to your trailer. And that's not very good. They don't like that because that slows down the entire process. You know, they're trying to get those packages out as fast as possible. And when that happens, your manager is going to be at your trailer, pushing you to move, pushing you to get that thing done, get that light out. Boy, do I remember that. Oh boy. Sometimes they'll put you in a trailer. They'll move you around a lot. And they'll put you in a trailer sometimes where it's already backed up. There might be nobody in there, and they move you, and they're like, oh, can you go to this trailer? And it's already backed up. It's already a freaking shit show. And you got to move twice as fast just to keep up, just to get going. So normally when I started, I'd always try to, when I started the store, I would always try to clean up my trailer before the packages started coming down, because I knew if I can work ahead and keep it clean, it's gonna run way smoother for me. I'm not gonna fall behind. You know, I'm not gonna have my manager on my ass for the entire sort. You know, one time when I worked in the unload, where you're basically doing the opposite, you're taking packages out of the truck. I remember it's like, you'd hear it a lot from these managers. They'd be like, you know, you're gonna have to work a lot faster, otherwise you're gonna be here for a long time. Also, sometimes attendance can be difficult. Attendance might be an issue. I remember one time I was in this office and I heard this one guy basically getting written up because even though he called out, I guess he didn't have enough time to excuse his time off. And they're just like, well, you know, we're glad you called, but that doesn't excuse you though. And then they send it to another area. They're like, okay, now go here, go do this, keep these lights out. And I'm just like, oh boy, that sucks. I'd hate to be him. So yeah, it's a well-known fact. When you work in a warehouse, you're gonna bust your ass. You're gonna get overworked. You're gonna be tired. You're gonna be hot. Your body's gonna hurt. You're gonna hurt. Your back's gonna hurt. Your joints are gonna hurt. Oh boy. I mean, I've torn stuff in my knees. I've walked with a limp for months just because of wear and tear. I've had to work with a sore back. I've had to wear a back brace, lifting heavy boxes for hours. You're going to become real acquainted with caffeine and anger. Those are the two things that are going to push you through. But yeah, working in a warehouse, it ain't for the weak. It ain't for the faint of heart. You got to be made of tough stuff for that. I know people who lasted one day doing stuff like that. What are some of the good things about working in a warehouse or working a physical job? Well, one, you stay active. It's a lot easier to be lean and be in shape because you're moving around. You'll walk 10 miles in a day. All that lifting is going to keep you strong, going to keep you lean. Great way to lose weight. You don't have to worry about getting your steps in. You don't have to worry about getting a walk in, taking extra time out of your day to be active. You get paid to work out. What's another pro? You like working as part of a team? A warehouse is pretty good. I mean, generally most warehouse jobs I worked, people work together, people get along. You're more likely to have a team of like-minded people you get to work with who will have your back and will look out for you. And then if you work in a large enough place where there's a lot of diversity, a lot of young people, a lot of guys, a lot of men, a lot of women, I guess it's a good place to make friends. I mean, I've made a lot of work buddies working there. It's great. So it's part work, part social club in a way. Some of the best camaraderie I ever had was working in a warehouse or working a physical job. I've met more people. I've heard more stories. I used to love getting put in a trailer with somebody. They would just tell me their life story. And I don't know why, but I used to like that. I used to like listening to that. Listening to people's unique perspectives, their goals, their struggles. I was always one of those people. I know some people don't like that. Some people think that's annoying, it's boring. But I mean, if you're in a truck for 4 to 6 hours, busting your ass, you can't listen to music. You might as well talk to somebody. You might as well have a conversation. It makes the time go by faster. Unless you just want to be alone and miserable. And that's the way I see it. And then, well, if you're a scoundrel, it's a great place to meet people, if you know what I mean. A lot of hooking up, a lot of scandalous activity going on in places like this. Because, you know, you got your guys, you got your dogs, and then you got your baddies as well. I don't really recommend doing that. I don't recommend shitting where you eat, but if you're that kind of person, I guess you could consider that a pro. Now let's talk about working in an office, a non-physical job. So when I used to work physical jobs, physical labor, I used to absolutely love shitting on office workers, thinking that they were weak, they were lazy, they had it easy, while I was out there sweating my ass off in 90-degree heat, busting my butt. They were sitting in a nice, cool, air-conditioned, climate-controlled environment. And I'm like, oh boy, I would love to be able to sit down at my desk, have my own desk, fuck around on the computer. So after working a bunch of physical jobs, I got sick and tired of it. I'm like, you know what? Let me try to find a job where I can make as much doing physically less. Where I don't have to sweat and kill my knees and joints and back and have to rely on pain medications all the time just to get by, and caffeine. So I ended up landing this job working for a call center. Now, I was not in the office all day, every single day. My job was very interesting. I kind of worked there was a lot of travel involved in my job. So I spent a lot of my job also traveling all over my state, sitting in traffic. That was nice, getting paid to sit in traffic for 2 hours. That's easy money. But when I was working in the office, especially all day, that was when things really sucked. So the culture is totally different. The people I was surrounded by were totally different. The energy that you found working in a warehouse just was not there. So here, things moved more slowly. It's not a loud, fast-paced environment. Everybody there is just kind of lethargic and moves slowly. The place I worked at was probably about 90-95% composed of women. And those men who did work there were on the softer side, physically and mentally. Whereas working in a warehouse, most of the guys were in shape, and you'd have a lot more of the masculine kind of guys. A lot more masculinity. Whereas here, there's working in an office, it just wasn't quite there. I swear, it's like I had more masculinity in my left nut than half the guys there, and all the other guys there. I felt like the freaking alpha in that place. But also I noticed there's a lot more bickering, a lot more politicking, a lot more backstabbing that goes on in an office environment. People there are much craftier, whereas if somebody doesn't like you in a warehouse, they're much more likely to say it to your face. You'll know. But in an office, everything is so much more subtle, Machiavellian in a way. Your coworkers will smile and greet you and ask you things about yourself. Meanwhile, they're talking behind your back. They'll make up lies and stories about you. I experienced a lot more toxicity working in this kind of environment. There you want to be crafty. You don't want to wear your emotions on your sleeves. You got to learn how to play the game. You'll also notice that many times the management in these kind of establishments are inept. I know my supervisor didn't really know what the fuck she was doing. There's stuff I knew that I could do better than her. So that's one of the cons, is the toxicity, the inept management. People there are generally lazier. Another con of this kind of job is you're more likely going to have to deal with the public. Either in person, on the phone, and you know how people can be. You know how customers can be. They can be nasty in person, but they're even worse on the phone. When you have 30 to 50 people to call in a day, you can expect most of them you won't get a hold of. Some will hang up. So that only leaves maybe a small fraction of the people you call you'll actually be able to get a hold of most of the time. And those conversations, they could end well, or they could end poorly. So there were times when I had to make a bunch of phone calls. I would be provided with a script. Usually, I would try to memorize it. The worst thing you could do is just talk to the person and just read off the script. That was awful. The worst way to do it. I would usually shorten it down and just get right to the point as quickly as possible. I would treat people's time like it was freaking gold. Just get to the point. Because half the people you call, they're busy, they don't have a lot of time, they don't have a lot of patience. And I kind of got tired of having people get pissed off at me all the time and hang up on me all the time, so I just got to the point I had a simple message, I got it across. All right, thanks, have a nice day. On to the next person. So I got pretty good. I got pretty good at it. At talking on the phone, talking to people. Which will never please everybody. You'll always piss somebody off. That's just the way it is. Also, in an office position, it's very, very common to have people want to delegate work down to you. Especially the people above you will often give you their work. I didn't always mind it. You know, if it kept me busy and kept me from having to find shit to do. If I liked it, if I got to learn something new, that's fine with me. So those are some of the cons. Now some of the pros is, yes, you don't have to bust your ass. It's a slower pace. You have tasks, you have assignments, and you basically have all day to get them done. I imagine most people who work in an office probably only spend maybe a fraction of their time actually working. Most of the time is spent talking, chit-chatting, checking notifications, responding to emails. Only a fraction of their time there actually results in any real work being done. So I had a lot more time on my hands when I was there. And a lot of times I would pick up extra projects, especially ones that I actually liked doing. Made the time go by faster. That way I'm not sitting around. That way I'm not assigned something I don't want. Because if you don't have work, work will be given to you. So I'm like, I might as well find something I like doing and volunteer and do that. I'll let my coworkers who just want to fuck around and be lazy get all this shit work. And I took pretty much every single opportunity to travel and to be out of the office that I could. If they needed somebody to go somewhere, to a certain location, sign me up. I'd rather get paid driving through traffic and just chilling out at another location. Because there I can just mess around on my phone, there nobody sees me, I don't have a supervisor there. So I'm like, sure, give it to me. I'll do it. And plus I got a nice big fat juicy mileage check at the end of the month anyway. So another thing that sucks is all the multitasking that goes on in an office environment. Especially in a call center when you're on a call. When you're on the phone, you got your headset on, and you're messing around on the computer at the same time. You got two screens, you got one thing on here, you got a spreadsheet here, you got some other software over here, some database that you're trying to enter information into as well. And you're talking on the phone with somebody at the same time. So the multitasking, all the stuff you got to do at the same time. But I remember calling people and, it'd be like, ring, ring. They'd pick up, hello? Hey, it's me, Kevin. I'm calling from 201 Childcare. And they'd be like, oh, okay. So I'd be like, so I'm just reaching out to you about your open enrollment. Do you have a few minutes to talk with me about that? Or do you have a few minutes? Do you have a minute? And they'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And then you gotta start asking them a bunch of questions. Stuff like that. It can be quite tedious after a while. But once you get good at it, once you know what to say. I remember I was so nervous when I first started. I didn't know what the hell I was gonna say. I was be like, hi, it's me, Kevin. So yeah, it can be pretty awkward. So that's another con. So now the pros. What are the advantages of working in an office environment? Well, yes, you do get your own space. I did get my own desk. I could bring stuff from home. I could decorate my space, my workspace. I had a laptop there. I had these big dual monitors. And it made doing work on your computer so easy. because you have all this extra space. You have all this room where you can drag things and move them up from one screen to the other. You can have multiple things up at once. It makes multitasking so much easier. You can copy here, you can paste over there. But it was nice being able to have a computer, being able to have my own background on it. I had it all customized. It's like I had my own background. It was like some Spartan symbol with like a Spartan warrior on my lock screen. I actually had on this wall of my little cubicle, I had like a map of the state, of our state, and with all of its towns and everything. Because I traveled a lot for that job, so it was kind of cool just having a map and being like, let's see, where am I headed today? And it had this desk. My desk, I could actually raise my desk because I like to stand at my desk. I didn't like sitting down all day. You know, you'd never think you'd get back problems just from sitting down at a desk. But trust me, I learned real quick. That stuff can wreck you up. That stuff can wreck you just as fast. Bad posture. So I preferred to stand. I always felt good. I always felt more confident when I was standing up. Obviously, you're not in the heat. You can dress normally. It's a nice climate controlled environment more often than not. And it's not as fast paced. You don't have to rush the way you used to have to in a warehouse where you're constantly running around trying to look busy all the time. Usually you get a few tasks throughout the day, and as long as you get them done at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And I guess you do feel you get treated with a little bit more dignity. You feel a little bit more like you're being treated like an adult, like a human being, and not just a machine, not a slave, not a robot. So that's good. And we used to have meetings. We used to have like these meetings, sometimes in person, but most of the time it was on Zoom. Most time, it was just on the computer. Being able to meet and have meetings and sit through meetings where we can bounce ideas, we can talk about things, we can come up with solutions. That's good, being able to have input, being able to have a voice. You didn't really get that much, not as much of that working in a warehouse. Unless you were on like a safety committee, you were on a safety team, you could have meetings and talk about safety concerns. But apart from that, you really didn't have that much input at all. Oh, also, so the office I worked at, generally, we got plenty of holidays off. You get pretty much every single holiday off. Even something as silly, even like Juneteenth. Like, who would think you'd get that day off? Whereas if you work in a warehouse, you're pretty much working most holidays, unless it's Christmas. I think that's about it. Maybe Thanksgiving. But you get plenty of time off. You get plenty of sick time. You get plenty of holidays when you work in an office. Not to mention, you get snow days as well. So for my situation, for my job, whenever there was a snowstorm, they would actually close. But we would still get paid for that day. Work in a warehouse, you better show up. You better brush off that car, drive through that snowstorm, and get your ass to work. Or just call out. Because most of those warehouse jobs, they operate all the time, 24/7, especially a big place like FedEx Ground or Amazon. Those places are running all the time. But it was a real nice thing, a real nice treat when I worked that office job, being able to take a day off and still get paid for it. Meanwhile, my coworkers who did have remote jobs still had to work. So yeah, that was my rant for the day. Nice little comparison between an office job and a warehouse job. So I hope you enjoyed that. So for those of you who have been in a similar situation, have worked similar jobs, worked in warehouses, worked in offices, tell me your story. Let me know. Let me know what you went through and how it was for you. And if you worked in an environment that I've never worked in, like fast food, I would never do fast food. Fast food, delivery, let me know. Tell me your story. Tell me how much it sucks. I'd love to hear it. Also, click on this playlist here if you want to hear about my 9-to-5 wage slave experience and all the crap that I went through, the long years I spent busting my ass working these silly jobs, which almost drove me insane. Well, that's all I got for now. I hope you enjoyed this, and have a good one.